This episode of Test Drive is brought to you by Elmec and their EV-Duty Smart Home Charger.
General Motors has been very secretive when it comes to their Ultium electric vehicles, including this 2024 Chevrolet Blazer EV RS all-wheel drive. In fact, getting the information about this is next to impossible. Their media website doesn't tell you what the specs are for this, and almost nothing out there has been published about the specs on the RS. Everybody's talking about the SS, the performance version, but what about the everyman's EV? This is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be going in depth with this, going over everything that you need to know as we take our first look at the 2024 Chevrolet Blazer EV RS and seeing if it is worth the $73,000 for this specific model here in Canada. Normally when we put together a video like this, we'll go to the brand's media website, and for example, media.chevrolet.com, to get all the information I would need about this vehicle, including the performance numbers, range, and all that. But GM is still being very secretive. You can't get that information readily available, but we have found it. This specific car uses a two-motor all-wheel drive system, good for about 288 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque. Now, those aren't impressive numbers by the typical EV standard, but realistically, that's what you need for a day-to-day basis. This is on par with the regular Blazer, the non-EV version with the 3.6-liter V6 engine, and you're getting plenty amount of power for this type of vehicle. 449 kilometers is the estimated total range, or about 279 miles, out of an 85 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery. Now, this vehicle can be charged up at 150 kilowatts DC fast charging or 11.5 kilowatts on an AC charger. And what I found interesting is if you go with the rear-wheel drive version of this vehicle, it's about a 103 kilowatt-hour battery pack. That's the first time I've seen a manufacturer have a larger battery pack for the rear-wheel only models. Typically, we'll see it's just an extended range because you've got one less motor. So it's interesting to see GM going with that for their two-wheel drive Blazers. But again, because there's so little information out there, that might just be how GM is advertising these batteries. So as far as we can tell, at least on the window sticker, we've got an 85 kilowatt-hour battery on this vehicle. As this is the first time that we're featuring the Blazer RS, I want to go over in depth everything about this vehicle, but it would not be possible if it weren't for our friends at Disbro Chevrolet here in St. Thomas, Ontario. They've lent me this vehicle for a couple hours to be able to do a video on it. And what's interesting, if at least you're here in Canada, GM Canada has said that you aren't allowed to sell these vehicles for 3 months. So all the dealers have gotten a Blazer EV RS. They have to sit on the lots so that drivers, yourselves out there, can actually take it for a test drive and see how it is. I think that's a great approach. It allows buyers to actually get the chance to drive these vehicles, because something like the Cadillac Lyriq, as soon as they came into the dealerships, were sold immediately. So if you're really interested to know more about it, you'd never be able to drive it. So I think this is a good opportunity. And by the time we're filming this, this is about a month into that 3-month period. So I would definitely recommend getting down to your local Chevrolet dealership and taking one of these for a drive before they sell. But moving on, let's talk about the design of this vehicle. I think it's quite handsome. Looks good on the front. We've got a full light bar that runs across the width of the front end, and it is similar to what the ICE version of the Blazer looks like, although I'd say it's just a little bit more EV-esque. Is it completely funky? No, and that's what I like about it. It does look more or less like a normal SUV, just happens to be electric, so very good job there. Now, I haven't actually popped the front of this, so we're going to be doing it together in real time. I'm curious to see if there is some sort of front storage compartment, and as you know, I refuse to call it a frunk. I hate that term. Let's take a look what's under the hood. Plastic. Absolutely nothing to be able to do underneath here. That's fine. We've only driven one electric vehicle, the Ford F-150 Lightning, that had a usable front storage compartment area, so no worries about that. But the front end on it is very sleek. I do like it. It's just a good looking vehicle. Personally, I would not get it in black just because there's some side details that you lose out on. We'll talk about that right now. I'm starting off back here just to accentuate how long this vehicle is. Similar in a lot of ways to the Cadillac Lyriq. Obviously, it's based on the same platform and they are related, but I just like the length of this. You get a lot of space overall, and the design is pretty good. Not over the top, nothing crazy funky like James just had with the Ioniq 5, but it is subtle enough that I think you're average consumer is going to be interested in it, and EV buyers will jump on board as well. Now, I mentioned the black paint. You can see there's sort of a C cut out on the side here near the wheel well. That is black. If you get a different color for the paint, that would be still black. So having the entire car black kind of makes that blend in. So on the red vehicles, or pretty much any other color, I think it looks pretty cool. That little design element is also where your charging port is on the driver's side. There's a small button on the top left corner of it. You hit that, it'll pop down, and you can plug your car charger in there and push the button again for it to come back up. I do find that the motor is a little slow, so I have to see how well that handles over time, especially in our Canadian winters if that freezes up. But for the most part, it is what you would expect to find on a Chevrolet. You've got lockable doors on the front and back sides of the doors, which is good, so you can access the vehicle pretty easily. And aside from that, again, just that long profile is essentially what makes the Blazer EV stand out. This is on the larger side of the sort of mid-size EV market. But let's take a look around back and see what's going on there. Around back of the Chevrolet Blazer EV, we see a continuous design language here. These arrow-shaped taillights are fantastic. Again, kind of similar to what you would be getting on the ICE vehicle. Gives the car a sporty look at this RS trim. And then the badging is more or less blacked out. You got the black bow ties. Trunk will open up automatically as well. You have an option for that, or you can push the button. Key fob also opens it up. And I would say that the trunk space is pretty decent overall. I've got my things thrown in there, like I didn't care about putting them away before filming, but for the most part, you've got a good amount of space back there for a mid-size SUV. Seats can fold flat as well, and there's tons of space on the inside as well. So I think overall, if you're looking for a larger electric vehicle, then this would be a great option for you, giving you some flexibility and cargo capacity. Plus, the overall range and everything is pretty much acceptable for this generation of electric vehicle. But we're going to hop inside and talk about what's going on in there, and then we'll take it on the road. I'm in the back seat now of the Blazer EV, and I'm behind myself, the driver, which I don't normally do, but we have the window sticker still here in this side of the window, so I couldn't put my suction cup on the other side. But even behind myself, I have legroom. I've got maybe about an inch or two of actual legroom. Headroom's pretty good as well. I'm almost at the top. I'm about 6 foot. I always say I'm 6 feet, but then add on an inch or two just because I'm a bigger guy. So imagine I'm 6'2", but I'm still sitting here. If I were to sit up straight, my hair is just touching the headliner, but not bad overall. Good amount of comfort back here. The seats are pretty plush. We do have some sort of suede material along with the leatherette. Overall pretty comfortable, but again, good amount of space. Armrest works out pretty well. And then we've got 2 air vents pointing from the center console, which is great. 2 USB-C ports, and then outboard rear heated seats, along with the LED lights up top. Now, this doesn't have the sunroof. That's fine. I believe that is an option, but the RS in Canada comes this way, whereas in the US, you have to add I think it's the driver assistance package, which adds all the other safety tech, like the 360 cameras and the digital rear view mirror. All that comes with the RS trim here in Canada. So there's no additional options on this car. It is essentially the way that it comes as an RS, but overall good amount of space back here, good amount of comfort if you're looking for a mid-size SUV. Again, I feel with the Blazer, the regular ICE version, you're losing a little bit in the back here, quite comfortable overall. But I think really the important thing is to see what's going on up front. There's a lot of tech to talk about, so let's get in the driver's seat and see what that's all about. We're now in the business end of the Chevrolet Blazer EV, the driver's seat. This is where you want to be. It's fun to be a passenger, but it is way better to be in the driver's seat. This has a lot going on for it. I want to try to cover as much as I can. Overall, the interior design very similar to what you would see on the ICE version of the Blazer. We have circular air vent pods in the center as well as on either side. They've got some red accents to them, both with the plastic surrounds as well as the actual little vents, make it kind of look like a turbine sort of thing. Pretty cool. I like it. You've got some suede material and softer touch materials throughout. You know, there's a little bit of plastic here and there, but for the most part, it is a soft touch interior, which is nice to see at this price point. The centerpiece of this vehicle is the 17.7-inch screen. Looks really good, and it is curved towards the driver. So kind of like with the Cadillac Escalades, we have 2 screens sitting on top of each other. That's more or less how it is here. We have a driver information screen as well as the infotainment. This is using Google built in. We've talked about it a little bit, but for example, because this vehicle isn't actually registered to anybody, it doesn't have OnStar, so you have to connect to the network. Somehow I'm using a mobile hotspot on my phone. If not, you're not going to have the built-in maps, which I think is a bit of a bummer, but a lot of brands are going that direction now. So you have to have an OnStar subscription with their data connection in order to get your full integrated experience with this vehicle. But we do have a map, obviously, through Google built in there. There's some information about the vehicle, so I'm curious to see if I go into the charging. We have things like your home location, fast charge prep. This is something that we talked about when we were driving the Ford F-150 Lightning. See, it says here, just like an athlete, your battery needs to warm up to perform its best. In the same way, this gives your vehicle a head start for fast charging. This is critical for not only our Canadian winters, but just charging in general. Using this, currently it says it's not ready. If I click start, it will get the vehicle in progress. It says it may take up to an hour. Expect a loss of range and you'll receive a notification when it's ready. That essentially conditions the battery for fast charging. We're currently at about 50, I think it was about 58% overall charge on this vehicle. I'm going to turn it off because obviously we're not going to be fast charging it, but you've got those settings there. There's preconditioning temperature. So again, when you start your vehicle, what temperature do you want it to be? It's going to change because right now, it's about 10 degrees Celsius outside. You might want it to be 23, but during the summer, you want it to be maybe 20 or less. So you've got some things like that. You've got preferred charge times, excellent stuff. We have scheduling, wicked. You've got your My Chevrolet account. You can do everything through the app as well. We don't have access to that. Then there's information about regen braking as well. So for example, if we plugged in the vehicle right now, it says it would be ready by 3:15, which is about 3 hours from now. Not too bad overall. And it's saying it's charging it to 80%. So if we go to 100, it would be about 5:30. So that makes about the most amount of sense there. And it actually tells you what the estimated range would be. So at 100%, we're looking at 447 kilometers, just 2 kilometers shy of what GM says would be the optimum range for this. Considering, again, it's about 10 degrees outside, that makes total sense. So the infotainment system, pretty responsive. I'm pretty happy with that overall. It is, again, the current generation of what GM's doing. So good stuff there. Camera quality, pretty good overall. We have 360 cameras, as I mentioned, and then the video rear view camera as well, which is nice. So good stuff there. A couple things to note about actually driving the vehicle or getting it ready to drive. You put your foot on the brake to start it up. There's no button, which is sort of Tesla oriented. And then much like we saw when I drove the Cadillac Lyriq, is you have a interesting gear shifter. So you have to kind of pull it towards you and then you either go up or down depending on which direction you want to go. And then there's a button for park. So might take a little bit to get used to, but it is there. And then when you're done, you just open the door and get out. You don't have to push a stop button or anything like that, but there are a couple buttons that pop up when you pull into park. For example, I do have the vehicle running because if I open up the door, everything shuts off. I need to film it, so I want to actually have it running. So you can have it run for up to an hour, and then you just push the off button, it shuts everything off. So good stuff there. I think that's a really good mix because we've had complaints when we're driving along with vehicles like Volvo, some of their electrics. As soon as you open up the door, everything shuts off. I believe the BMW i3 was like that, where again, not usually something that you have to worry about, but in our situation where I need to film these cars and have them running, it's much better to have an option. So that's all good stuff there. Aside from that, everything else you would expect to have: dual zone automatic climate control, heated and ventilated front seats. We've got adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, all the safety tech that you would expect to find on this vehicle. We do have power folding mirrors as well as driver memory seats. The lighting controls are in the infotainment. We've talked about that with GM's current generation, their new generation mid-size pickup truck. There is a button here, so if you click that, it pulls up the options for turning on and off the lights, but for the most part, they're on auto. That's all you really need, so makes sense there. That's essentially it for the interior here, aside from, things like wireless phone charger, cup holders, little storage bin here with some USB. Like, that's pretty much the interior here. I think we need to take it on the road and see how this vehicle performs, because I'm excited to know more about it on the road, and I'm sure you are as well. We're on the road now with the Chevrolet Blazer EV. I'm excited, finally getting the chance to drive this. It's been a pretty long time coming for me to finally get behind the wheel of this, and I'm excited to be doing it because, again, I like electric vehicles that look a lot like normal cars, and this is pretty close. I mean, it's not there. Obviously you got to make it a little funky, but for the most part, it looks like a normal car. And so far, the interior here, very, very normal. This is what I want from a car. We've got buttons, physical buttons for things like your HVAC controls. But what's nice is you can use the screen if you want. There are some options to be able to change the temperature. You just push the button on the screen, or you can push the little dial. You got both options, so that's good. Like I said, they've removed a couple buttons like your light controls. That's fine. I mean, most people don't really use those anyway, but you've got all the other important things wherever you need them. So it makes sense. Drive modes are hidden in the screen. I would say that would be the only bummer. Would have been nice if they were a little bit more accessible, but whatever. It's fine. We're in sport mode now because I do want to be testing it out just to see how it is. Now, because this is a snapshot, we're only doing a first drive on this. I'm not going to be talking about the energy efficiency, at least according to the government of Canada and testing that this vehicle did from GM. This is looking at around, I think it was like 21 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is pretty decent for an all-wheel drive vehicle. Yeah, obviously your mileage will vary, but at about 450 kilometers, I think that's plenty enough to get the job done. Now, GM says if you were to go with the rear-wheel drive version, you'd be looking at closer to, it's like 515 kilometers, so not bad overall for a mid-size SUV. So I'm pretty happy with that. But, you know, I mean, again, for the RS here, you're getting pretty much everything that you would need. I've got all the tech that I would want. Head-up display, you know, screens are beautiful, heated, ventilated seats, all of that, all the good stuff. Sunroof, you can get it as an option, but this one doesn't have it, and that's fine. I mean, you know, some people don't like sunroofs, so you either get it or you don't, but you got the option there should you want it. But I think that this is going to be a pretty popular seller, assuming EVs become popular again. I mean, we're still in this weird period where people just, you know, kind of moved on from electric vehicles. So I appreciate you watching this video. It shows that there is still some interest in it. And yeah, I'm still excited by them too. I still love driving these vehicles and seeing what they're all about. Plus, this is the only one I've seen on the road, and I'm driving it. You know, you haven't seen any of these so far. So it is kind of a rare thing to be able to be driving it. And I like it. So first impressions, drive is smooth. It's not super quiet in here. You do have the propulsion sound after a certain speed kind of goes away, but you know, it's quiet enough for a mid-size SUV. Ride is pretty good, you know, because it is a longer wheelbase vehicle. You do eat up the bumps a little bit better, so I do like that. And overall, you know, handling, we're going to be going around one of our famous St. Thomas traffic circles here. We're going to be seeing how it handles it, but if I kind of chuck it in a little bit, oh yeah, complete confidence. All my stuff goes flying around. Oh, that's really good, actually. Yeah, I find with some of these vehicles, especially with the taller SUVs, you're going to get some body roll and you might not have the full confidence, but obviously with the batteries being along the floor, you're getting a massive improvement in handling because the center of gravity is super low. So, I mean, like, again, whew, that's good. I like that. I imagine that the SS version will be even better. But that's what's good about this. You know, we've been spoiled for years now when it comes to electric vehicles that they just have insane amounts of horsepower and torque. And yes, 288 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque isn't really a lot for an electric vehicle. But realistically, that's more than enough for what you need. You know, if you do put 4 people in this and you put some luggage and stuff, it's not going to be a problem at all. Obviously, I'm on my own here with some equipment in the back. It's nothing to be putting a sweat on for this vehicle, but you don't really need all that power. And sometimes I feel like it's almost too much. You know, manufacturers were putting these large motors in these vehicles mostly because that's what they had developed. So they just took what they had available and threw them in the cars. You don't necessarily need all that power. I mean, if I floor it, I'm up to speed and no problem. There's no issues there. So you don't really need more than this. And that's what's good about having a performance trim. You know, Hyundai and Kia have been doing that. Now GM's doing that with the Blazer EV SS. I think that's a good option. So the mainstream consumer is going to buy this. And then if you want something with a little bit more oomph, you go with the SS. So for what you're getting out of this, absolutely perfect. I think that as a daily driver, this is going to be very good. But so far, super comfortable in here. Seats are pretty forgiving for a large guy like me. Plus the interior space is good. I mean, I fit. Look at this. You know, many vehicles I have to put my arm up in order just to be comfortable. There's like a little pocket for my arm in the door card there, and I'm perfectly comfortable. It doesn't happen often, so I'm quite content with that. And we'll do some performance testing in a second here as we take it up to our little highway bypass in St. Thomas. If you're familiar with the area, you know where it is. If you're not, just picture it as a single lane highway that there's never any cops on, so everybody rips it up there. But we're gonna go do that and see how it is. Now, I do like this shows me the actual kilowatts I'm using as I took it for a little rip there just to get a little bit of space before anybody shows up. We've got a clear path here, we're going to take it from a dig. There is no launch control, but again, we're in sport mode. Give it a bit of a brake dig. Okay, so not off the line very quick there. That's fine. But you know what? We're up to speed and 100. Now the car kind of throttled what I was doing, and maybe it's a preventative measure to ensure that you aren't going to roll into somebody in the parking lot, because I had my foot on the brake and my foot on the gas to try to give it a bit of a dig like you would in an ICE vehicle. So I just want to try it again without doing that. If we just go, oh, there we go. That's a little bit better. Gives you the power when you want it. Excellent. Up to speed, no problem, and 100. So that's good. And like I said, that's what you need on a daily basis. Yeah, it's fun to have gobs of power and be able to go as fast as you want. But, you know, the idea of buying an electric car is to be efficient, is to save money. Why are you going to be saving money and then spending it all going super fast every single traffic light you get to? So this makes the most sense. You don't have all the power that this car could potentially have if GM put bigger motors in it, and that's fine. That's the whole point of it. I'm quite happy with it. Now, we can talk about the price point here. Again, $69,000 base. We're starting to include all the delivery destination fees now in our as tested prices. So that's why you might notice some of the prices over the last 6 months have been a little bit more than we were reporting before. And yeah, so about $72,000 delivered. That's okay. I mean, you do get the rebates for this because the base MSRP is under $70K. So theoretically, you should be able to get full tax savings on this vehicle, which I think is fine because, you know, again, GM's not offering too many options for this, and it works. That propulsion sound, though, it does come up quite a bit. It is interesting, so you do hear that quite a lot as you're going along. But like I said, I think one of the things I really like the most about this is the display to show me how much energy I'm using. That is tremendous. I don't see that on a lot of vehicles, at least not in real time. You know, obviously, since we're not spending the week with it, I can't tell you what the overall energy efficiency is. But again, you know, right now I'm using 50 to 42 kilowatts. You know, it's coming down a little bit as we're evening off on speed, but then it also shows me how much I'm recuperating. Can I calculate that on the fly? Absolutely not, but I think it's good to have. You do have a couple of options to be able to switch the driver cluster screen around, so I like it. There's some good information there. Good on GM. This is going to be a very interesting vehicle to watch because, like I said, you know, I'm still excited about electric vehicles. I hope you are, which is why you're watching this video, but it just seems right now we're in a stalemate. We're just, you know, not as much interest in it. We've sort of hit that plateau of proliferation when it comes to these vehicles. So hopefully that doesn't mean we're going to have problems down the road where innovation will cease, because, you know, something like this is definitely a great stepping stone in the right direction to making EVs a little bit more mainstream. And again, you know, we want slightly more affordable vehicles, and that's where the Equinox EV will come in. So if you've got a little bit more cash, you don't quite have as much to spend on a Cadillac Lyriq, but you still want something that's pretty much just as spacious with more or less all the tech. This is the way to go. I like it quite a bit. I'm excited about it. I'm hoping I get to spend a full week with it down the road, and especially that SS model. This is already pretty fun. I can only imagine how much better the SS is going to be for performance, but better as performance, not as daily living and driving. This is already extremely good. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. As always, we try to get back to everybody in the comments as often and as quickly as possible. So if you have any questions about this episode or you have suggestions about what you'd like to see next, leave a comment below. Let us know. We'll try to get back to you as quickly as we can. Give a thumbs up to this video as well if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It helps us build this channel as well as get more views. So subscribe, become a member, and all that. Everything is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.